Hello everyone, back tuning into the GWV Sunday Round-Up. So as always on a Sunday we're going to get various things together and see what is happening. We're going to start off looking at solar activity. We'll also have a look at the oceans, the QBO, the Arctic Oscillation, Northern Arctic Oscillation and the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. So quite a bit to cram in. Just say later on today we'll have the second update for the Glastonbury Festival. That will be coming up this evening. We did the first update a couple of days ago. I think it's Friday evening, so I'll have a second update for that later on today. Interesting, Glastonbury come back this evening around 7 o'clock. So just starting off with solar activity then. This is the solar disk on our side of this today from solarham.net, and we appear to be completely spotless today. There's no sunspots at all visible on the solar disk on our side of disk. So obviously solar activity is at very low levels because there's no sunspots to be seen at all. We'll be seeing a lot more of this over the next few weeks and months as we head down into solar minimum. Here's the GWV's daily solar activity tracker. It's been updated by our good friend James at Quill. Always throw this in every week with the GWV Sunday Round-Up. Now, big thank you, James, for getting this updated for us. So, solar activity, well, you can see the spotless solar activity that we've got at the moment. We've had a couple of days of this now, around 3 or 4 days in, those orange spots appearing there along the very bottom of the graph. So had about 3 spotless days. This is probably going to be the 4th spotless day today. You can see that solar activity has been trending downwards since we had this rather large ramp up in sunspot numbers at the beginning of April just here. So after that we very quickly dropped down, of course, because we are heading down into solar minimum. And while it's not a linear process and you do get spikes upwards, the trend is down, so we couldn't maintain this level of quite high solar activity very long. So we continue to trend downwards with the trend lines, although actually the trend lines are thick red and thick green line are more or less just hovering around where they've been for a little while now. Obviously, if this this run of spotless sunspot days continues over several more days, we will find the green and red lines trending down. They will be trending down over the next few weeks and months we head on into solar. We can actually go back to the start of September on this graph, and you see where the thick green and thick red trend lines were at the beginning of September 2016. So clearly there has been a trend downwards over the past sort of 9 months or so, and this will continue over the coming excuse me, over the coming weeks and months as we reach solar minimum probably sometime in 2018 or 2019. Remember, we're looking at this because when you have low levels of solar activity, it corresponds back to an increased risk of northern blocking over North Pole, particularly for the UK and the Atlantic. And the reasons aren't that well understood. It's probably to do with the way that the sun interacts with the jet stream coming across the Atlantic during high levels of solar activity. It kind of peps the jet stream up, if you like, gives it a bit of vim, whereas the jet stream weakens when you have low levels of solar activity, and that can allow blocking to form over the pole. It's not a guarantee of anything because it always depends where that blocking is going to be sitting as opposed to who gets the cold weather in the winter, but it's one of the things that does seem to correspond with an increased risk, no more than that, increased risk of colder winters. Obviously, we'll keep looking at solar activity over the coming weeks and months. Have a look at the oceans next, and we'll start with the Pacific first of all. So, again, it looks quite cold in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean right now. I think the PDO is moving colder after about around 2-3 years of quite warm PDO condition, Pacific Decadal Oscillation. It is trending into a colder phase now. How long that will last, I'm not entirely sure how long it's going to go on for. But certainly the Northern Pacific is looking quite cool, and that means that we still have no real signal for El Nino through the ENSO region. That's the equatorial Pacific from Peru over there to Indonesia over here. Again, no real signal there across the equatorial Pacific for El Nino. If anything, we do still have these blue splotches here in the eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean, so that's kind of going away from El Nino. I suspect now we would expect to start seeing El Nino beginning to appear within the next month. So if we don't see a warming of the ocean taking place in the next month or two, I would suspect we're going to just keep around ENSO neutral into the second half of the year. If we do get El Nino, I think it really has got to start getting on with it and getting its act together. Over in the Atlantic, no real change actually from the past few weeks. So the tropical Atlantic still looking quite warm down here. I spoke about this last week. It's interesting that it is quite warm down across the tropical Atlantic. It's particularly towards the coast of Africa just there. That's interesting because this is the area where you get tropical storms and hurricanes. You get those going, sort of develop as thunderstorms actually in that area off the coast of Africa, and then they sort of pick up energy via the warm ocean and head over towards the Caribbean, which of course is over here. They head towards the Caribbean and they develop from storms into hurricanes. So if you've got warm oceans temperatures off the coast of Africa, it can coincide with a bigger hurricane season. One of the things that would offset a big hurricane season would be El Nino, but if we don't go into El Nino, if we just stay around ENSO neutral, then it might be that with this warm sea surface temperature anomalies we've got in the tropical Atlantic off the coast of Africa, it might be that we're going to have quite an active hurricane season this year. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. Further north in the Atlantic, actually the sea surface temperature anomalies remain quite cold. The cold blob, you heard all about that a couple of years ago. The cold blob has come back in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. So a bit of a north-south split actually between the ocean temperatures. The southern part of the Atlantic Ocean, the northern hemisphere, is quite warm. The northern part is quite cool at the moment. This is Siberian and Eurasian snow cover chart. This is the latest from the National Ice Centre. It's continuing to thaw out across Russia and Siberia, although we do still have quite a bit of snow actually across northern parts of the Siberian plain. All this is going to go in the next month or so, but I think we have been above trend, really, above average in terms of the snow cover that we've maintained across Russia and Siberia over the past few weeks. I think you can expect to have less snow than that at this time of year across the northern parts of Russia and Siberia. I'll have a look back when I've got time and may have more on that next week, whether this is indeed above trend. My guess is that it is a little bit above average with that snow cover that we've got up there. But I need to have a look back over past years. You can go right way back to 1997, I think, with these charts at the National Ice Centre. So I'll have more on that probably next week. Anyway, within the next few weeks, we'll find all of this snow cover disappearing, and it'll just be green then until September, when we'll begin to get the snow cover returning to northern parts of Siberia. QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation, next. I've been talking about this a little bit in the videos recently. The QBO is an index that tells you what the strength of the zonal westerlies are, really. So when you've got a westerly QBO going on, the zonal westerlies are strengthened and enhanced across the northern hemisphere. But when you've got an easterly QBO going on, the zonal westerlies are weakened, and you can sometimes get blocking coinciding in the winter with an easterly QBO. Now remember that we should have had an easterly QBO for the winter of 2015-16, but it failed. As we went into 2016, the easterly QBO failed, and you can see the failure of the easterly QBO on this chart by this white area just here that's down at the lower level of the atmosphere, but this grey area up here is the westerly QBO, which continued through the first half of 2016 when it shouldn't really have done that. And then, of course, the westerly QBO strengthened into the second half of 2016. You see how this grey area comes back. Well, the latest is that easterly QBO looks like it's on its way. You can see the way this white area is appearing up here and starting to move down the layers of the atmosphere. We aren't in an easterly QBO yet. We're still in a westerly QBO. That grey area just there indicates that we are still in a westerly QBO, but it appears that the easterly QBO is on its way. I suspect by the time we get through to the winter 2017-18, we should be in an easterly QBO. It should be an easterly QBO winter, which means the zonal westerlies across the northern hemisphere should be in a reduced state of strength. Now, this doesn't guarantee that we'll get a cold winter. There's been plenty of mild winters that have coincided with easterly QBOs, but it probably does increase the risk that next winter might be a little bit colder than the winters we've had recently. So the easterly QBO looks like it's on its way. It's more advanced than it's been at any point since going back to this time, which is sort of 2014 into 2015. That's the last time we had a proper easterly QBO. We haven't had an easterly QBO going down to this level of the atmosphere where it is right now since back in 2014-15. So it does look as though the easterly QBO is on its way. Arctic oscillation next. This is an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the north part. Not driving, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. So we can go back into winter with this. So we can go back to February just here. The black line tells us where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. The red lines at the end tells you where the Arctic oscillation is being forecast to go. Back in the winter, we was positive with the Arctic oscillation. That continued into the start of the spring as well. We had a change in April where the Arctic oscillation went negative. Did pick up a little bit there through the middle part of May, but then again it went negative once more from May into June. So we've had a run of sort of 2 months, a little bit more of negativity of the Arctic oscillation. These indexes, the AO and the NAO, they tend to move in blocks of 2 or 3 months. So you'd expect this run of negativity of the Arctic oscillation probably is going to start running out of steam quite soon. And the Arctic oscillation forecast is actually being predicted to start to go positive through the middle part of June. That's this period just here. You see the red lines, which are the GFS ensembles. They're forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go into a more positive phase. That's probably going to coincide with a drier and warmer spell coming up in the next week to 10 days. And I'll get on to that part of the forecast part of the video shortly. But we're probably going to have some warmer weather in the next week to 10 days. Quite how long that's going to last, I'm not sure. You see at the very end, actually begins to hint at going negative again. But that's a very long way off. That's coming to the end of the GFS run, which goes around 384 hours. But if the Arctic oscillation was to start going negative again as we run up towards the end of June, then obviously it might start turning cooler and more unsettled once more. NAO is the same idea. The black line here tells us where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation. The red line's at the end where the NAO is forecast to go. Again, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere, this time in the North Atlantic as opposed to the Arctic. So as with the AO, we was positive with the NAO through February and into March and further back into the rest of the winter. In April, a change took place where we went negative with the NAO. We stayed negative pretty much through the whole of May and into June as well. Actually, the forecast is lifting things up into slightly positive territory with the NAO. But again, you notice at the end here, the red lines are all trending back down again. That's as we're heading up towards the latter stages of June. So if we take the NAO and the AO together, they are hinting that as we move towards the latter stages of the month, we might start to go negative once again. If we do that, it's probably not a very good signal for summer, to be honest, because as you get through to the end of June, that's the period, late June, early July, that's the period where the summer pattern will tend to start revealing itself a little bit. Early June is always a very mixed period, but second half of June into early July, that tends to be when the pattern for the actual summer is going to start to reveal itself. And if it's going to be a negative AO and NAO summer, well, that doesn't really bode all that well for our summer prospects, and it probably doesn't bode all that well for GWV's summer forecast. But we won't worry too much about that at this stage. This is a long way off. It's at the end of the GFS ensembles. And of course, these are the GFS ensembles just here. So we've got the upper air temperatures there. The red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average, precipitation along the bottom. So this is reflecting what I was just talking about. The AO, the NAO, they're going positive. We're building up the Azores high, essentially, and losing the blocking signal to some degree. So temperatures are going to be generally on the warm side for the next week to 10 days. Yes, we do get a few cooler days coming through, but overall quite a warm period. Then running up towards the last stage of the month, this period just here, which is the extended range of the GFS runs and GFS ensembles, you notice there's a cooling trend going down to average. Some quite cool ensemble members coming through, and for precipitation you see that there are a few more precipitation spikes coming through later on in the run. Now this is all very spectacular because it's all a really long way off. It's over 10 days away, but just read between the lines, there might be signals that the latter stages of June are going to end on a fairly cool and unsettled note. But before that, lots of dry weather coming up for the next week to 10 days, and quite warm conditions at times as well. That's reflected by the temperature anomaly from Sunday the 11th through to Monday the 19th of June. Temperature anomalies are coming out a little bit milder than average. Most parts of Western Europe coming out milder than average. Very, very warm down over Spain. The temperature anomaly there is between 8 and 10 degrees above average across Spain and Portugal, and into southern France too. That's really hot because, of course, it's going to be a very hot time of year anyway down across Spain in June. So to be 10 degrees above a really hot time of year anyway, that's going to be very, very hot. So you've got a holiday planned for Spain over the next couple of weeks. It may be a little bit too hot, I don't know, it depends what sort of temperatures you like. Over across the east of Europe into west of Russia, temperature anomalies there are looking quite cool. For precipitation, so it looks really quite dry. We saw it on the GFS ensembles, quite dry for England and Wales for the next week, from the 11th through to 19th of June, a little bit more unsettled up in the north. Finally, have a look at the charts, and this is for GFS for Thursday, and we've got a ridge of high pressure across the south, low pressure still plaguing the north. It's never going to truly settle down for the north. I think Scotland and Northern Ireland will keep rain coming through at quite regular intervals, certainly showers anyway. England and Wales probably getting a fair amount of dry and warm weather. Through to the weekend, the Azores high is building up, so that's the reason those charts, the indexes, the NAO and the AO, that's the reason they're trending more positive, because the Azores high is building up there and pushing the jet stream north, the jet stream being indicated by the black line. As I always say, the indexes are just reflecting what the weather is doing, and the reason the indexes are going positive is because that Azores high is inflating and pushing north and sending the jet stream north with it. So the weekend, 17th, 18th of June, this was a really good weekend. High pressure is in control. Going to be plenty of dry and warm weather. We might see temperatures going up to mid-20s Celsius down in the south over the weekend. Then we move on into Monday the 19th of June. That high pressure begins to pull out to our west again, starts to bring the air down more from a northwesterly direction, which is slightly cooler. And then that continues as we run up to day 10. High pressure is out to the west. It's not desperately unsettled. It's a little bit more changeable, especially so to the north. And it is cooler again as well. Now, running out beyond that, I don't normally go out beyond day 10, but I can take you to Thursday, 22nd of June, and then we get this low pressure slipping down across the country as high pressure pulls back into the northern Atlantic. So that's the period where the indexes, the AO and the NAO, are starting to trend negative again. And the reason that's happening is that this high pressure is pushing northwards and it's sending this trough southwards. And that's a cool and unsettled signal, perhaps, as we're running up towards the very end of the month. Excuse me. If I have a look at the charts from the ECWF, and we see that got low pressure again to our north and west on Thursday. High pressure is down to the south and the southeast. Into the weekend, again, this high pressure is close by. It should give us quite a nice weekend. A little bit more showery perhaps to the northeast of the country over the weekend compared to GFS, but overall they look quite decent really for a fairly pleasant weekend. Running up to Monday the 19th, on to Tuesday the 20th, and then to Wednesday 21st of June. the idea is to take the high pressure northwards. It's a different way of doing it compared to GFS, but they're sort of going in the same direction, which is high pressure is pushing north and low pressure is starting to develop underneath it. So again, this could be a signal to turn things more unsettled as we're running up towards the final week of June. Be interesting to see whether that does indeed come off. So it looks like we're going to get a fairly decent run of weather over the next week to 10 days. Quite a lot of dry weather. Never tree settling down for Scotland. You'll keep showery rain, I'm afraid, up there. I know you've had a very wet, miserable time of it since we started June, but you'll keep showery conditions going for Scotland over the next week to 10 days. Elsewhere, we are going to get a spell of warmer and drier weather, but just a few hints there that for the last week of June, as I say, it is a period when the actual summer patterns often starts to reveal itself. Few hints there that the final week of June might be turning a little bit cooler and quite unsettled. So watch your space, and obviously we'll keep you informed. Right, that's all for now. Hope you found the GWV Sunday Roundup interesting and informative. Come back later on if you're interested in the weather for Glastonbury Festival. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.